Hi and welcome to the first video in my building your own network /domain series. So we're going to go ahead today and install Windows Server 2016. Now what I will say before we start the video is think about how you want to install Windows Server 2016. So I'm going to be actually booting it on a secondary hard drive on my test machine just so I can get full functionality. But for this video I'm going to install it on Oracle VM so you can see how we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's jump off and download our Windows Server 2016 ISO. To navigate to the link in the description, it will take you to this page, which is Microsoft's official Windows Server 2016 evaluation page. As you'll see on the first page, you'll get to pick which version of Windows Server you'd like, if you want it as a virtual lab, an ISO, or an Azure file type. Not too sure what that is, but don't worry about it right now. So, go ahead and download your ISO. I've already got this, so I won't do this now, but basically click Continue. It asks you to put in some details. I'll be honest with you, I made some stuff up for this just to see if it'd work, and it did, so go ahead and do what you like. Once you get it downloaded, go ahead and obviously decide how you want to install it. So, as I said, I'm going to be using a second bootable device, which is a hard drive on my current machine. So I'm going to go ahead and download Rufus so I can install that. If you know what Rufus is, I'll show you that very quickly. So Rufus is a really great way to basically build an own bootable USB drive. This is so I can install Windows Server on another hard drive or obviously another machine. If you want to go ahead and download that, the link is again in the description. If not, just go to Google and type in Rufus. It's really intuitive page to set up. Just scroll down to the bottom and go ahead and click download. Once you've got it downloaded, I'll show you how to set it up. So if you are wanting to make a bootable USB drive, bear in mind a few factors. The USB drive needs to be 8 GB, and obviously when you use this tool it will format it, which means it will delete everything off your pen drive. So bearing that in mind before you go ahead and do this. So basically open up Rufus, go ahead and select your device. I am aware mine is currently 1 GB. This is just a drive I found on my desk. I am not using this as an example, it's just a test so you can see what happens. So yeah, go ahead, put in your USB drive as long as it's 8 GB or more. Select the device you plugged in. You can keep your partition scheme the same, you can keep the file system the same, and you can also keep the if I could speak, you can also keep your cluster size exactly the same as it is on default. If you want to give it a name, go ahead and call it. You might want to call it Windows Server pen drive, or whatever you want to call it. Then go ahead and select that file you just downloaded. So in my case, I put it into downloads and it's just called this. Go ahead and click open. And once you're ready, go ahead and click start. As soon as you've done that, it'll take 2 to 5 minutes. Once it's done all that, you will have a bootable pen drive. Obviously, as I explained, I'm going to be using VirtualBox for this installation, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set that up. So go ahead and again, click the link in the description, which will take you to oracle.com. Alternatively, go to Google and just type in either VirtualBox or OracleBox. You'll get to the same page. Go ahead and click download. Again, it is free to use. Once you've got it downloaded, we'll show you how to set it up. So once you've got VirtualBox downloaded, go ahead and run it. So go ahead and click run. And it will take you to the setup page. Go ahead and click next. You can keep all these as default. You can keep all those as default. And click yes to install it. Oh, one last thing very quick I should probably point out. So as you say, this warning page comes up, it will temporarily disable your NIC, so it will kill your internet. So if you are downloading anything or uploading anything, just bear that in mind. So go ahead and click yes once you're happy to do that. Click install. Go ahead and click yes. And if you want to open OracleBox right now, click finish. If you don't, untick the box and then open it whenever you like. But for me, I'm going to open it right now, so I'm going to go ahead and click finish. So once you've got your Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager open, go ahead and click new in the top left-hand corner. So this is going to be the name for the virtual machine. This is only a name that you're going to see. It doesn't actually have any impact at all going forward. So I'm going to call this Windows Server 2016. And as you can see, it already identifies the version. Type, obviously Microsoft Windows. Go ahead and click next. Now you can dedicate how much RAM you want to give to the box. So I currently have 16 GB installed. So I'm going to give this box 8 GB. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click next. It's now going to say, do you want to create a virtual hard drive now? Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and click create virtual hard disk now. Then you can select what hard disk file you type. I like to use VHD, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now you get to a storage on physical hard disk page. Now you've got two options here. You've got dynamically allocated storage or fixed size. I would always recommend going for a fixed size disk because sometimes dynamically expanding drives can cause you problems in terms of if it suddenly gets really big with a page file or something, it can bring your server down. And it can also cause issues with performance if you've only got slow drives. If it's expanding, it can really decrease performance. So like I say, it's completely down to you what you want to pick. I'm going to click fixed drive for this installation. I'm going to go ahead and make it to 30 gigabytes. Apparently I'm not. Let's try again. 30 gigabytes and create. And because it's a fixed drive, it will take a few minutes just to create that drive for you. Obviously bear in mind where you're saving that drive to. If you don't want it in the default location of C, then click this file here and point it to wherever you want to install it to. I'll be back in 2 minutes time once this is finished creating. Okay, so once your VHD or virtual hard disk has finished creating itself, you'll be presented with this window. At the minute, this is a dumb machine, it won't do anything at all, so let's go ahead and make it usable. So whenever you create a virtual machine, it is always good practice to go into settings first, let's check over the settings. So in this case, the basic tab, that's fine, that's what we've called it. Advanced, I've actually moved it from C, so that's fine. That's all good. System, so give it 8 gigabytes of RAM. Absolutely fine. Processors now, most virtual machines nowadays actually build themselves with one CPU, so I'm going to ramp that up to 4. I've got an 8-core processor, so 4 should give it plenty of juice for now. Leave all that as default. Go ahead and click next. Yep, that all looks fine for me. Storage. So this is where it gets a bit interesting. So we've currently made our hard drive, okay? So imagine you've got a computer. This is a hard drive for the computer. Now, at the minute, it's blank. There's nothing on it. So we need to create a virtual optical drive. In this case, there's already one added. If you wanted to add one yourself, just go ahead and click on this here and attach a new storage device and select whatever you wanted to add. So I'm going to go here on my optical drive and click on choose an optical disk file. So I've already downloaded the Windows 2016 ISO, which is this one here. So go ahead and select it. That's fine. Audio, don't worry about that now. Networking, I'm going to use a bridge adapter. So I'm going to use my one that's on my current machine. And keep all that the same, that's fine. And I think that's all we need to do for now. So go ahead and click OK. Once you've done that, you're ready to now start your first virtual machine in Oracle VM. So you can either double click on it or right click and click Start and click Normal Start. So because we've selected that Windows ISO, it should boot straight into it. And this should be now the first steps in creating your first Windows Server 2016 machine. So I'll come back in a minute once it's done its circle of death at the start and we'll hopefully get in setting this up. So if you've ever installed any sort of Windows device before, Windows XP, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows Server, whatever, you use this Windows setup screen. So you've got to set your language first of all. Now in my case, I've only got this as a default. You'll probably have the same if you've got the same ISO. Time and currency format. Now I'm based in the UK, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it automatically updates my keyboard and input method, which is correct. Then they go ahead and click install. You'll then be greeted with this lovely page. So essentially you've got two versions of Windows Server to install. You've got either the Data Center or the Standard Evaluation Center. I'm going to go ahead and select the second one down. If I expand this, you'll understand why. So these two say desktop experience. This basically means you get to see the GUI, the front end of Windows Server basically. If you go with the normal versions here, you won't get the GUI unfortunately. So you'll have to manage it all with PowerShell or other tools. So go ahead and click this one here. Accept the terms and licenses. And then at this stage, you can either do an upgrade or do a custom install. I always recommend doing a custom install. It just lets you know where you're installing it. And obviously we've got our virtual hard disk, which is this one here. Obviously I made it 30 gigabytes, so go ahead and click next. And there we go. Windows Server 2016 is now installing on this hard drive. I'll come back in a few minutes time once it's done all its settings here, and I'll see you soon. And once it's finished installing, it'll have to do a little quick restart. Now bear in mind at this stage, because you've still got that virtual CD drive attached to the virtual machine, it'll ask you to either press a key to boot from the ISO again. Don't press that or you'll go through the whole installation stage again. What I would recommend at this stage, if you've got the time, is to shut down your virtual machine and just remove that drive in the settings pane, because it'll stop anything like that happening again. But for now, I'm just going to let it boot back into Windows and we'll finish up this installation. Okay then, so now we're at our first customized settings page. Now, unfortunately in Windows Server 2016, you can't actually pick a default user. It's automatically assigned as administrator. So go ahead and make an administrator password. Now, what I will say when doing this is to make sure that you write this password down and also make it secure. Password will not suffice. So essentially, because your device isn't on the domain yet, it's not on any network yet, this is your only means of accessing it by this user. So make sure you're making a note of this, because if you forget this password, you're going to have a rough day. Once you've assigned yourself a password, go ahead and click Finish. And there we go, we are now at our login screen. So go ahead and click Input at the top, keyboard, and click Insert Control-Alt-Delete. And the user is obviously administrator, and the password is the one you've just set. And go ahead and log in. And there you have it. Windows Server 2016 is now installed. Now, one thing I will say before I end this video is it's a really good practice to, whenever you install Windows Server, to rename the server straight away. Unfortunately, in Windows Server 2016, you don't have the option to name the server before it's installed, which is a bit annoying, but it's one of them caveats. It doesn't matter at this stage. I'm going to go ahead and click Yes for the sake of it. I'm just going to minimize my dashboard for now. I'm going to click File Explorer here at the bottom. I'm going to right-click this PC, click Properties. Then I'm going to change settings. So as you can see, it's named itself Win-KD5CU B9UB8R. Go ahead and click Change Settings, and then go ahead and click Change. At this stage here, you can name it to whatever you want. So might as well call it, at this stage, Windows Server 2016. So obviously, if this is a live environment, depending on what the server is going to be, you would name it appropriately. So if it's going to be a domain controller, you might call it something like, I don't know, testlab-dc. If it was, I don't know, an imaging server, you might call it image or whatever. Just basically, just think about the name before you do it. Essentially, after you name a Windows server, it's very difficult to change it depending on what you install. So I'm going to call it Windows Server 2016 just for this example, and go ahead and click OK. Apparently spaces aren't allowed. That makes perfect sense, Connor. Go ahead and click OK. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that the net BIOS, we will touch on this later, but the net BIOS has to be 15 characters or less. So if you want the net BIOS to match up with what the Windows server is called, then go ahead and shorten the name. For me, it doesn't matter right now. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Press OK, and then it will make you restart your computer. So go ahead and click Restart now. Once it's restarted, you are then done for my first video. I hope you found it somewhat intuitive. If there's something I can make it better, please do let me know. I know it's quite a long video, but I've covered quite a lot of methods in terms of installing Windows Server. So yeah, there you go. You now have Windows Server installed in Oracle VM. My name's been Connor. I hope you enjoyed the video.